On 19th of September 2023, the Canadian PM Justin Trudeau put out a statement in the House of Commons which created ripples in the Indian diplomatic world.
Over the past number of weeks, Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen, Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
India was accused of assassination of a Canadian citizen named Hardeep Singh Nijjar, and in return, Trudeau said an Indian diplomat would be expelled from Canadian soil. Canada took this so far that they even reached out to US, UK and Australia to put diplomatic pressure on India.
Starting with the top focus in this edition, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau set the cat among the pigeons, claiming that Ottawa had credible intelligence linking Indian agents to the killing of Khalistani terrorists.
Federal government has evidence linking Indian diplomats to the killing of a Surrey Gurdwara leader.
We've expelled a top Indian diplomat from Canada.
Nor must we countenance that political convenience determines responses to terrorism, extremism and violence.
This is what started a heated diplomatic battle between Canada and India. And while most people might think this to be yet another political conflict, I must tell you that this could have wide-scale economic impact on both countries. While India is the 9th largest trading partner of Canada, Canada is the 7th largest foreign direct investor in India. And Canadian investment funds have invested so heavily in India that they own 2.68% stake in Kotak. They have 1 to 2% stake in Paytm, Zomato and Nykaa each, and 6% in Delivery. They've invested $800 million in Flipkart Group and 16.62 billion Indian rupees in Phoenix Malls. On top of that, millions of Indian students and executives study and work in Canada. And this could, number one, affect their lives, and number two, it could affect the economy of Canada because foreign education from India alone contributed $4.9 billion to the Canadian economy in 2021. So yes, it is a political rift, but it could have wide-scale economic consequences. So in this episode today, let us understand what is this Khalistani movement all about, why is Canada supporting the Khalistanis, how will it affect India, and most importantly, in the long run, how will this hamper the economic and trade relations between India and Canada? This video is brought to you by ChatGPT plus Communication Masterclass course. People, if you are somebody who struggles to speak your ideas out in public, if you are somebody who lacks the confidence to speak in public, or if you are somebody who often mumbles while presenting your thoughts, I would highly recommend you to join our Communication Masterclass course. This course is a 6 weeks course whereby I will take you step by step from a beginner's level all the way up to a TEDx level presentation skill. The best part is that if you have any doubts, I will personally talk to you during our weekly live sessions to help you overcome every fear you have. Cherry on the cake, you will also get special access to the ChatGPT module whereby I will teach you how to use the secret prompts in ChatGPT for storytelling, for business research and even English speaking. This is why now it's Communication Masterclass plus ChatGPT course put together. So if you also want to master your art of communication and if you want to present your ideas in the most powerful manner possible, come join our Communication Masterclass course using the link below. And I will see you in the live session. Chalo, let's start from the basics and try to understand the root cause of this conflict, which is the Khalistan movement. People, the earliest origin of the Khalistan movement dates back to the independence movement of India. During that time, while Muslims got Pakistan, Hindus were in majority in India, and some members of the Sikh community felt uneasy and demanded Khalistan. But this demand did not gain much traction until the 1970s because a huge majority of Sikhs always wanted to be a part of India. In fact, many of them had even laid down their lives for India. This is when our dear neighbor Pakistan came into the picture and started supporting the insurgency. So the question over here is, what did Pakistan have to do with Khalistan and how did they benefit from this? Well, as it turns out, it was simply a matter of revenge because of the 1971 war. In this war, if you remember, India had badly defeated Pakistan and liberated Bangladesh. And since Pakistan could not defeat us in a conventional war, they devised a strategy called Bleed India through 1,000 cuts. This was done through a proxy army. To tell you about it, in this organized world that we live in, if Pakistan directly attacked India, then it would be a declaration of war. So India could practically have the license to attack Pakistan back. And if that happened, it would have been disastrous for the Pakistani economy. But here's where countries often use a proxy. In this case, instead of directly waging a war, Pakistan funded certain organizations that could destabilize India. So if you look at the map, apart from Kashmir, there are 3 more states that share a border with Pakistan: Rajasthan, Gujarat and Punjab. In case of Rajasthan and Gujarat, their borders were largely unpopulated and the terrain was not hospitable. But Punjab was the best state to carry out these activities, as it would not only destabilize India, but also, according to Pakistan ISI Director Hamid Gul, it was like having an extra division of Pakistani army at no extra cost. So do you see how this is working out? If something terrible happened in India because of these groups, Pakistan would not be held responsible. At the same time, Pakistan's goal was being fulfilled without any responsibility or risk. And this brings the question, how did Pakistani government deploy its strategy? Well, as it turns out, Pakistani Punjab had a large number of Sikh shrines, and using this as an excuse in the late 1970s and 1980s, they invited a large number of Sikhs under the pretext of pilgrimage. But what they did was train and brainwash them into militant activities. And this took such a disastrous turn that it led to the siege of Golden Temple in 1984, that was followed by Operation Blue Star to flush out the terrorists.
Over decades, Sikh nationalists called for independence. In 1984, there were protests and riots in Punjab.
They told me how bad things were and how Khalistan may be declared within the next 5 or 6 days. And if Khalistan is declared, Pakistan would cross the border.
Indian forces attacked the Golden Temple at Amritsar, killing hundreds of what India said were heavily armed militants.
We are now at war with India.
Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India, has been shot.
Indira Gandhi, ruler of the world's largest democracy, died today, shot down by 2 of her own bodyguards.
And this had a wide-scale consequence on India because it led to a drastic unrest among the Sikhs. It led to the assassination of our then Prime Minister Indira Gandhi, which was again followed by anti-Sikh riots. So until this violence broke out in India, the Khalistanis were viewed as rebels. But after this incident, they were seen as terrorists. So after this incident, the Indian government cracked down on the Khalistani terrorists, and most of them fled to Western nations like Canada, US, UK and Australia to seek asylum. So this movement died down due to the concentrated efforts by the Indian government. But again, recently, the Khalistan movement has started rising. And by the way, Hardeep Singh Nijjar, as in the man who got killed, was one of those people who fled India 26 years ago and tried to take asylum in Canada using a fake passport under the name of Ravi Sharma. So after getting his citizenship, he became a prominent member of the Sikhs for Justice organization, which wants to separate Punjab from India. But now the question over here is, just because of one man, why is the Canadian government spoiling its relationship with India, which is worth $1 billion? And why did Prime Minister Trudeau himself go restless when the stakes are so high with India? Well, as it turns out, Justin Trudeau is doing this because of a political compulsion. As it turns out, although Trudeau's party secured more seats than the opposition, it was insufficient for him to form a majority government. So Trudeau needed support. This is when a man named Jagmeet Singh came to his rescue, who was the leader of an opposing party called NDP in Canada. And Singh's NDP had won 24 seats in the 2021 elections. So Justin formed a coalition government with Jagmeet's NDP party, and everything worked out very well in Justin Trudeau's favor. But the problem over here was that Mr. Singh has been increasingly vocal in his support for the Khalistan cause.
We were being targeted, our people were being massacred, we were facing a genocide.
So do you see what's happening over here? Justin Trudeau has to keep supporting the NDP, and supporting NDP means supporting the Khalistan movement, and supporting the Khalistan movement means hampering diplomatic relations with India. And this is where the recent turn of events started.
Canadian security agencies have been actively pursuing credible allegations of a potential link between agents of the government of India and the killing of a Canadian citizen.
Now most people will ask me over here, bro, what is this? You are a business channel. Then why are you covering this political drama? Are you doing this for views? Well, guess what guys? This political drama has wide-scale economic implications which are very important for both the businesses in India and the economy of India. So let's break this down and understand the trade and economic impact better. Firstly, trade is a very important factor in any bilateral relationship. And the total trade between India and Canada today stands at $8 billion, with India exporting about $4 billion and importing about the same amount. India is Canada's 9th largest trading partner, whereas Canada is not even India's 25th largest trading partner. And even though trade with Canada is not very significant, if we look at it from an Indian perspective, between 2001 and 2019, India's imports to Canada grew at 10% with a 25% 100% jump in the last year. And recently, because a lot of Western countries are moving away from China, Canada was about to sign a free trade agreement with India. Now, if you know what is a free trade agreement, please skip to this timestamp. If you don't, here's a very simple explanation of the same. FTA or free trade agreement is an agreement between countries where both countries agree to lower the import taxes such that traders from both countries could trade with lower costs. For example, Canada is a huge exporter of canola oil and pulses, and India is a huge exporter of mangoes and spices. So in this agreement, Canada would agree to decrease the import duty on mangoes and spices from 12% to 3% in exchange for a reduction of import duty on canola oil and pulses from 10% to 2%. And sometimes both countries might agree to apply zero import duty on each other's commodities. This way, Indian traders can compete in the Canadian market and the Canadian traders can compete in the Indian market. This is how a free trade agreement works. And this agreement had the potential to boost the Indo-Canada trade like never before. For example, agri-food products trade could have increased by 56%, manufacturing could have increased by 57%, and merchandise exports could have increased by 242%. This is the reason why India and Canada were about to sign a free trade agreement called Comprehensive Economic Partnership Agreement. So now that India has paused the negotiations for the free trade agreement, both Indian and Canadian exporters will suffer losses. And this agreement between India and Canada had the potential to double the bilateral trade between India and Canada to $16.8 billion. And if this is signed, Canadian exports will grow by 39 to 47% and Indian exports will grow by 32 to 60%. This would have added $6 to $15 billion in each country's GDP. And most importantly, it can generate anywhere between 8,000 to 14,600 jobs in India. But now, this agreement process has been paused due to the diplomatic battle. The third impact of this conflict could be the pullout of investments done by Canadian funds in India. And like I said before, Canada is the 7th largest foreign direct investor in India with an investment of 1.7 lakh crore rupees. In the last 4 years, this investment amount has been growing at a staggering 37%, and a fund called CPP Investments has now invested over $45 billion in India. And like I told you in the intro, they own 2.68% of Kotak with a 1.15 billion Canadian dollar investment. $800 million have been invested in the Flipkart group, and 16.62 billion Indian rupees have been invested in Phoenix Malls. And they also have 1 to 2% stake in Paytm, Zomato and Nykaa each, and 6% in Delivery. The second impact of this conflict could be the pullout of investments done by Canadian funds in India. And just like the Canadian companies, even the Indian companies have invested 6.6 billion Canadian dollars, generating over 17,000 jobs. So if things get worse between India and Canada, the 7th largest investor in the Indian capital markets might start pulling out from India. And because of these fears, stocks like Kotak and Zomato might get affected. In fact, from what I checked last, both these stocks were already in red. Now mind you, these are not practical measures and they will only happen in extreme scenarios where logic is out of the window. And lastly, there is a huge Indian diaspora in Canada from students to corporate executives. In fact, 40% of the total overseas student population in Canada are Indians. So again, if things go wrong between India and Canada, the students' permit might get affected, the Indian government could impose heavy tariffs on Canadian universities, and hundreds of study abroad businesses in India could get affected because of this conflict. This is the background story and the impact of the Indo-Canada conflict. And now you may have a look at all the study materials to understand this matter better. That's all from my side for today, guys. If you learned something valuable, please make sure to hit the like button in order to make YouTube Baba happy. And for more such insightful business and political case studies, please subscribe to our channel. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one. Bye bye.